All right. So last week, the indices had the worst week in quite a while. The S&P 500 had the worst week since March 2023. That's what, almost a year and a half. And so this morning, stocks are rebounding. So what's happening? Well, this week we also have some inflation reports coming out. So we'll talk about this. And then crude oil still being down, and we have some more earnings. But overall, not much news. It is more buying the dip right now. Anyhow, lots to talk about. And with that said, welcome to Coffee with Markus and Morgan. Today is Monday, September 9th. And in this show, we are going to talk to you about what's happening in the markets and how we are trading it. And Mark, yes, I mean, we got to go on a weekly chart so that we see what happened last week in the S&P last week. We were down, what, 4.3%. The worst week since in a year and a half.
Yeah, worst week since March 2023, and a 4% drop in a week's a big one, Marcus.
Yeah. Also in the Nasdaq. I mean, in the Nasdaq, we were even down 5.8%. And even the Dow, that's usually hanging in there, down almost 3%.
Yep, the Dow, big drop there, but the Nasdaq, worst week since 2022.
Wow, that has been a while. Yeah, and I mean, we always talk about the 50-day moving average. And last week, at first, it seemed that the 50-day moving average would hold as support in the S&P. But then Friday, we had the jobs report. And the jobs report, worse than expected, with downward revisions for the previous months. And this is where on Friday, traders decided, no, this is not good. So on Friday, markets finished lower. Let me just see, 1.7% in the S&P. Markets finished lower, 2.5% in the Nasdaq. I mean, Friday was nasty.
It really was, and this is where, sure, the Fed has said that they are open to a slowing labor market to help combat inflation. But then when we have this slowing jobs market or weakening jobs market, the concern is that we go from an inflation battle to a recession battle. And so that is a concern for investors. And I think it's those downward revisions where we go back to previous employment reports and see some big decreases from what was originally reported, that just adds to the concern. Maybe the Fed has kept rates higher too long, and maybe we're looking at more of a recession concern than higher inflation being the problem.
Yeah, because as we see in this chart, I mean, the unemployment has crept up. I mean, on Friday, it was expected that unemployment ticks down from 4.3% to 4.2%, which it did. But yeah, I mean, we saw the headline here that August payrolls grew by less than expected. So talking about the Fed, I mean, this is where I keep refreshing this morning the probabilities because they change on an hourly basis. Right now, everybody is expecting the Fed to lower interest rates when they meet next week. The question is right now, by how much? And we see that traders are kind of back to normal, what I would say. 73% probability right now of a quarter percentage point, 27% probability of half a percentage point.
This is shocking to me, Marcus. Not necessarily because the quarter basis point is most likely based on probabilities, because I do believe that the Fed's going to cut by a quarter point, not a half of a point. But we know that Fed funds futures and investors have been overly optimistic for way too long here when it comes to the Fed and what they're going to do. And that almost 50-50 chance that we saw of a 50 basis point cut on Friday after the jobs report, I thought that would persist and continue on, and definitely through this week until we had some more inflation data to digest.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, talking about this week, it's what you say. If you look at the calendars here this week, on the economic calendar, this is next week. So we need to go to this week. We do have the big inflation reports, CPI on Wednesday and then PPI on Thursday.
Yeah, and I think this is the next big hurdle for investors trying to digest the inflation data and guess what the Fed's going to do. Even if the quarter point rate cut happens, and that's the most likely scenario, it's all about what the Fed shares and what they plan to do in the future, right? Are we going to get 3 cuts, 4 cuts this year? What does next year look like? And that's what investors are really looking at this point.
Yeah. We have a few more events coming out this week. I mean, first of all, we have earnings after the bell today, Oracle. And I mean, Oracle now also kind of being a company that is influenced by AI or participating in the AI boom. We will hear more about what they are seeing. Is the AI boom slowing down? Is it still in full effect? That could actually have an impact on the tech sector. And then we also have today the Apple event, and that's happening at 1 o'clock Eastern time. And I think this will be significant for Apple.
You know, it's a wild card for sure. And right now, Apple's standing out like a sore thumb there with that big red box down 1.4% for the day. Google also down, but with the Magnificent Seven, five of the others positive.
Yeah. And so the question for Apple is Apple behind on the AI curve? And they have already announced, yes, we are coming out with Apple Intelligence. Today, they will release or present the new iPhone 16. And of course, the world wants to hear, what does Apple Intelligence look like? When is it coming out? Because we already know what Google is doing with AI. I mean, Google has already released Gemini. We know what Microsoft is doing. I mean, they're heavily invested in OpenAI. We know what Amazon is doing. They're heavily invested, I believe, in Perplexity and Claude. We know what Meta is doing. They have their own large language models, Llama. We know what NVIDIA is doing with their chips and the new, what is it, BlackBerry, BlackRock, Black whatever chips, Blackbeard chips, I mean, that are coming out. And now the quick question is, okay, what about Apple? I mean, kind of the last of the Magnificent Seven to jump on the AI boom here and hasn't really shown anything yet. They just say it's coming, it will be awesome. And I mean, this is where today traders and investors are nervous going into the Apple event and saying, well, Apple, you might be behind the curve here.
And it's going to be a wild card for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, Marcus, I think we have to look at Palantir and Dell.
Oh my gosh. Yes, we do. PLTR, Palantir, this morning, jumping up 11%. Wow.
Yeah.
And okay, let's
Huge.
first talk about Dell and then we reveal why these companies are making larger moves this morning. Dell also up 4% this morning. So two companies out of the blue, really? No, there's always a reason behind it.
Yeah, there was some speculation, but it became official after the bell on Friday. It was announced that both would join the S&P 500.
Yep. So do you know who's dropping out?
You know what? I did not note that. Oh, they're American Airlines
What?
and Etsy.
What? AAL, American Airlines, dropping out of the S&P 500?
Yeah.
What? That's a shocker for me because the S&P 500, that is an index that has the 500 companies that most represent the US economy. And so apparently they have decided, well, American Airlines is no longer representative of the US economy. Okay, super interesting. And you said the second is Etsy. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, Etsy. I like Etsy. I do like Etsy.
Poor
My daughter
Etsy.
Vivian really loves Etsy. She buys a lot of stuff on Etsy. All right.
Poor Etsy.
Going back to the calendar, we also have tomorrow evening the presidential debate. So this is the So far, one and only scheduled debate between the presidential candidates, Harris and Trump. And that could have an influence on certain sectors. I don't think that it'll have an influence on the overall market, but it could influence certain sectors like banks, I believe, could be influenced. Solar, definitely. Alternative energies, energy companies. So we will see. So these are the two events that will happen before on Wednesday. Again, the Oracle earnings, the Apple event today, and then the presidential debate tomorrow evening. So it could be an interesting week.
Yeah, and I think that what the Fed does is the key driver here for the markets, but it could definitely create some short-term, movement, and like you said, maybe in specific sectors. Um, but yeah, just in general, sometimes I think we put too much attention on what's going on politically when corporate earnings and interest rates are the bigger drivers.
Yeah. I mean, looking at a 5 minute chart of the E-mini futures, we see that a nice bounce back overnight going into the opening. And now looking at a 5 minute chart of the S&P, we see that at first we opened higher, we're pushing higher right now. Exactly. Mark, didn't I call it like an hour ago where I said, okay, we'll probably move lower, trying to fill the gap. And I believe that now there's room to move higher again going into the afternoon. So that's what I expect. So I believe that today we will finish higher. Earlier today, the Nasdaq was actually up more than a percent. So we will see. What do you think? Will we see a reversal here? I mean, we see the first reversal after opening higher, pushing lower right now. So what do you think? Is the next move, the next leg, is it up or down?
I don't think either. I think we're
What?
just gonna be a little bit quiet right now. I don't think there's gonna be much direction either way at this point. Um, I think that I think that this week's inflation data is key, and then also, not to contradict what I just said about the debates, but I think that traders are kind of saying, okay, this was the initial reaction after this big drop last week, and now they're just kind of pausing and waiting. So I don't think there's really going to be follow through either direction
All right.
for
Well,
today.
let's take a look at our trades. And first of all, two open trades. CEG, a trade that we did not take. The original entry signal was at 177. We didn't take it because we didn't see enough data here. We are both interested as taking it as an open below entry. However, right now the open below entry in CEG around 3%. We are getting more interested at around 4 or 5%, right? So that's what we are looking for, but right now we are not in this position. AZ and AstraZeneca, on the other hand, this is where we entered this on Friday at 84.02, right now trading at 83. At first this morning, opening lower, right now,
Yeah.
seems that we are climbing back up and still trading slightly below our entry price by approximately a dollar. So let's see what's happening here.
Head the right direction.
All right. A new trade this morning popping up. I was surprised that we didn't see more trades popping up after we had this worst week. But hey, I'll take it. AVGO, Broadcom. We both entered this trade, and I mean, at first it was moving higher, lower. Right now it's a little bit lower. We entered at 139.11, and right now it's trading at 135. So what, down around $4 approximately. And we'll see what happens with this. Overall, down 1.3% for today. And this is what we are seeing right now. I mean, after a strong start in the tech sector, right now, Nasdaq pulling back a little bit.
Looks like it.
Looks like it. Moving over to wheel trades. And first up, our little buddy CSIQ. CSIQ this morning dropped below 12 right now, just hovering around the 12 level. That seems to be the new support here. So we'll see what happens. Nothing for us to do on this one. Now, BP is a trade that you entered. I did not enter this. And BP this morning, kind of unchanged. I mean, crude oil is still
Yeah.
trading below $70. So if you hop over here just very briefly, looking at crude oil, trading at 9 month lows here at $68. And with that, BP and also our HAL Halliburton position trading lower. Right now, hanging in there, not doing anything, just around the unchanged mark.
True.
Halliburton. Halliburton slightly up for today. So this is where in Halliburton, we are both in this one. Got assigned at 34.50. My break even is at 31.97. Right now we are trading at 28.69. Nothing to do, so we need to push a little bit higher before we can sell some more calls here. So with this, waiting until crude oil bounces back, which could happen this week.
Keeping an eye on it.
KSS, oh my gosh, I'm having fun with KSS. Calls. Got a sign at 21.50 and have been able to sell calls several times against my position at 21.50. Just sold calls last week and they expired worthless. Right now we are trading at 19.93. So we probably have to push a little bit higher and then I'll be able to sell calls again. Right now, my break even at 20.44, so we're slightly trading below my break even. But this is one where I'm having a lot of fun selling calls, doing exactly what we like to do when we are trading the wheel strategy. And then there's Merck.
Merck.
Merck. Super interesting. I mean, Merck, I got assigned at 120. And as you can see, right now, my break even at 116.01. I sold the 120 calls last week. And this morning, oh my gosh, at first, Merck was down 5%. So what happened? Well, there was some news that there's another company who has a treatment for lung cancer and that treatment is way more effective than Merck. So initially down 5%, as we can see, nice reversal right now. So we are trading right around my break even. I was not able to buy back my calls because I like to buy them back at 90% of max profits. So I still have the calls open at 120. But we see that they were last traded price 18 cents last week. I sold them at $1.20, so I'm trying to buy them back at 12 cents. Let's see if Merck moves a little bit lower. I might be able to do this and then on the next push higher, sell calls again. So also having lots of fun here with Merck. I'll take this.
Yeah, huge. I mean, just such a strong move though. With that reaction there, it looked pretty weak early on this morning, but a great reversal.
Yeah. Then going alphabetically, ON Semiconductors. That is a trade that you did last week. You did sell the 65 put. And right now, what's happening with this trade?
Yeah, I have an order to close it at 80% of the max profit. I sold it for 60 cents. I have an order to close at 12, but it looked early on that like maybe it was headed the right way and still up for today. It's still profitable, but nowhere near that 12 cents, which I'm okay with. I'm okay getting assigned at 65. I think it's a good company. I love the 65 level. And we'll see. The other exit plan for me would be to close at 90% max profit. Otherwise, just let it expire or get assigned on Friday.
Yeah. And then we have UPS. Our little buddy UPS is still trading in this range. I mean, I sound like a broken record, but the range that we have between 124 and 132. And we are trading exactly at the middle of the range, slightly above there. The middle of the range is 128. We are trading at 128.66. Come on, UPS. Here is the one arrow, the second, and the third arrow. This is the direction we want you to go. Now, we are interested in possibly flying a rescue mission on UPS, but not on a day where it is up almost 1% right now, up 0.9%. This is where we're waiting, but definitely interested in looking at a possible rescue mission at 124 to 125. So let's see what's happening over the next few days here.
I love that we're in the upper range, and would love to see it just break to the upside. But yes, if I'm gonna add to this, I'd rather it be down in those lower levels.
All right. Now, before we look at the markets and see what they're doing, if they're diddling around as you predicted, or if they're bouncing back right now, pushing more towards the highs of the day, it is the time of the day for our bad dad jokes. So, Mark, what do you have for us today?
Marcus, I got an interesting phone call last night from the actress Glenn Close. And when I told my wife, she was absolutely shocked. But I told her I was pretty used to close calls.
All right, all right, all right. So, let me ask you this very simple question. Which vegetable does the best kung fu?
Don't know.
Broccoli.
Just
All right.
because you acted it out, you get bonus points for that. And even we'll see who we'll see who wins, but the acting out, I have to give you credit for that.
Okay. So after the show ends, leave a comment below and let us know who had the better date joke this morning or who was acting it out in the better way. Looking at the markets right now, we are still trading at session lows in the S&P. We are trading at session lows in the Nasdaq. We're trading still, up in the Dow today. I mean, the Dow is definitely leading the pack. IWM, the Russell 2000 also. The VIX initially was way lower, dropping almost 10%. Right now, climbing higher. So there's definitely some nervousness going into the week with possibly the Apple event, Oracle earnings, the presidential debate, and then, of course, the main event, CPI and PPI data later this week. So lots going on. And you don't want to miss it. So if you enjoyed today's show, give us a like. We really appreciate it. Leave a comment below if you enjoyed it and what exactly you want us to cover going forward. And then also, if you find this information helpful, there's a share button. Feel free to share it. And with that said, we'll see you again tomorrow. It's a show tomorrow that they don't want to miss, right, Mark? Because we will cover what was said at the Apple event, how Apple is reacting, how tech stocks are reacting, what happened to Oracle earnings. And with that, have a great rest of your day.
Happy trading, everybody.